Well, hey guys, I'm Nick, and welcome back to Sci-Fanatics Live, where we chat all things sci-fi and Star Trek and everything that's going on all over the place in that world. And as always, I have a great panel of people to discuss all of these things that we all love so dearly in that world of sci-fi and Star Trek. And today we have some great guests with me. As always, my fellow Sci-Fanatic in crime, we have David with us. Thanks for joining us again, David.
Hey everyone, hope everyone's good.
We also have from the CloneStar podcast, we have Mike Overton. Welcome, Mike.
Thanks for having me.
So first of all, we're going to talk about Lower Decks because this is what's just literally hit our TV screens in the last few weeks. We've just concluded season 4 of Lower Decks just this week, which ended with the episode 10, Old Friends, New Planets. But the last time we had a bit of a live stream, we talked about the first 5 episodes of the season. And since then, the last 4 have aired. So we'll just quickly go back and have a bit of a chat, a bit of a discussion about those last 4 episodes of season 4 of Star Trek Lower Decks. And see what everybody thought of those. Talk about the good, the bad, the stuff we didn't, we thought worked well, maybe stuff that didn't work quite so well, and just get everybody's overall opinions. So kicking that off, we have episode 6, which was Parth, Ferengi's Heart Place. That was the 6th episode of the season, which we got to go to Ferengi. We had obviously Freeman and co trying to negotiate a bit of a deal there with Nagus, Rom and Lita. So it was great to see them in the episode. And then we also had Indy and Rutherford doing a bit of hijinks there, very awkward kind of, stuff as well on Ferengi, posing as a newlywed couple in this episode. So why don't we kick it off with you, Mike? What were your impressions of this episode? Did it live up to the hype and everything for what you anticipated? We were going to get a Ferengi episode of Lower Decks. This one,
definitely. I mean, the thing I really loved about this episode, it's like they took the Ferengi rules of puns, threw it at the wall, and every pun that they could come up with around Ferengis, they literally did in this episode. I loved it. I just thought it was great. It was great to have Max Grotchik and Chase Masterson back in Star Trek again. Rom's character, you can kind of see how he's progressed a little bit from where we last saw him in DS9. So we got a little bit of character development there as well. And we also got to see a lot more Ferengi. I mean, trying to think back, before that, the only places we've seen really is Quark's house, the FCA offices, and the Nagus' throne room. Those are really the only places that we've seen on Ferengi. So to see a little bit more of it,
I think we got an establishing shot. I think they did show an exterior shot, which was very similar to what they mocked up in Lower Decks. But yes, you're right. That was all we saw.
So it's great to kind of delve into a little bit more into the Ferengi culture as a whole on their homeworld, because before that we haven't really seen much. It was great, I mean, some of those museums are great. The Museum of Gambling, the Museum of Forgery, the Umok parlor,
Yes. You got to have the Umok's parlor. That was a must.
Parlor, I really love this episode. I think my little favorite bit from this episode is the memorial to lost prophet. Sod the fact that poor people have actually died. No, we don't care about that. We care about the money that they have
lost. Yes.
Which literally is typical Ferengi.
Yes. Was it all the? Correct me if I'm wrong. It was all the Ferengi who died in the Dominion War. But yes, there was. But it was not. It wasn't. It wasn't
the human factor or the Ferengi factor.
Yeah, the Ferengi factor. It was all these profits that could have happened that haven't. Yes.
I mean, if it was a Starfleet memorial, it would be a massive statue with someone with a flag and everything. No, not in Ferengi. It's a massive bar of gold pressed latinum, and every single slip that was lost was catalogued. And I just thought it was a great touch, just to kind of turn it up to 11 a little bit on the Ferengi typicalness for India, say. But
I wonder if it was held up by the self-sealing stem bolts. That could have maybe formed the foundation of the massive latinum structure.
Well, my theory is that they borrowed them from Quark on DS9 because he always seems to have 1,000 cases of, self-stealing stem bolts somewhere.
Self-stealing stem bolts.
Yes, that's
what
it's
self-stealing stem bolts.
Self-stealing
Yes.
stem bolts. Self-stealing, yeah, that'd be a good one, wouldn't it? Self-stealing,
yeah.
David, what did you think of our Ferengi episode?
Look, I thought it was really good to see another world-building episode. It was kind of a little bit like the funnier version of the Orion one we had earlier in the season. I was probably expecting a bit more nudity from the females, but that was actually
there was only one shot. There was only one shot. In that Federation restaurant. You saw in the very distant background there was a female Ferengi where the table or some things were sort of strategically placed to mask the Ferengi bits. But you're right. There was very little Ferengi nudity in this episode.
But that just shows how far Rom has pushed, his ideals of Ferenginar. Because before that it was, females can't wear clothes. Now Rom's in charge. It looks like that it's now an option.
Yes, optional. Yes, optional.
Maybe Lita's also had an influence on that too. I guess she's maybe pushed a bit of, female progressiveness into society of Ferenginar, which has maybe, had more covering up, which is interesting coming from.
Well, I think Lita always, Lita also always kept Rom a bit in check. I think from memory, from the relationship in DS9, she was always kind of, giving him good advice and, sort of being that sort of bit of more of a moral compass for him, I think, in a few episodes, if I remember correctly.
It's also good to see Boimler getting completely crazy on the Ferenginar pay television.
That's right. The Ferengi pay TV channel.
Like my weekend sometimes
with all of the product placement and advertising and that was funny. That was funny. Initially, when this episode first, I think I wasn't 100% convinced that it was in fact Max Grodenchik doing the voice for Rom, because I'm not sure whether they had, because I know that when they did the episode with Armin Shimmerman coming back to do Quark, they had him, like, he put the Ferengi teeth in to do the lines of dialogue, which made an enormous difference to how he sounds. But I'm not necessarily sure Max Grodenchik did the same thing, because there was something about his voice playing Rom that I thought, like, there was some lines of dialogue that I thought, oh yeah, that sounds like Rom, and others that were like, hang on, this doesn't sound like Rom at all. So I wonder whether he didn't necessarily put the teeth in to do the lines of dialogue.
And we have another acquisition rule there, which I think Chuck's called out.
Yes, Chuck. Thank you so much for that. Rule of acquisition: always keep your ears open. This is true. Number 7, exactly. This is true. Thank you, Chuck. Much appreciated. What else? What else do we have in that episode? We obviously had the what did you guys think of the Federation themed restaurant in this episode? Did you think that was like? I was thinking, is that something the Ferengi would do, or is that? Do you know what I mean? Like, did you think that was? Yeah, did you think that was like, within keeping to what we know about the sorts of businesses that Ferengi set up?
Yeah, to be fair, I really loved it. The fact that it's quite literally a clone of the Experience Las Vegas.
This is true. Yes.
I thought that was brilliant. There's no point reinventing the wheel, as they say. So I really enjoyed that. But yeah, I think anything for profit. If I knew that the Federation were coming to my home world to essentially add me to the tourist guide, you would bend over backwards, wouldn't you? So I think it does make sense that there would be that experience there.
And what about well, not so much relationship, but the relationship, well, the dynamics and the sexual tension and relationship tension that happened between Tendi and Rutherford. What did you think of that, David? Did you think that was going to go somewhere, or did you think it was just they're going to keep in the friend zone?
Look, it was a good opportunity. Look, it was going quite swimmingly until Tindy mentioned that she was going to walk around topless, I think, which is perhaps she was getting into the Ferengi spirit there, with the female nudity thing. But maybe it was a bit misinterpreted, and it obviously got cheeks blushing. But look, I thought it was danced around in the right kind of way. Yes, it'd be lovely to see a bit of shipping, and at the end of the episode, they certainly got quite close when they were doing some maintenance work. Kind of looked like a scene out of those sleeper pods in what was it, The Fifth Element? Yeah, if you remember one of those scenes there. But look, it's cute, it's nice, it keeps it vibey, and I'd like to see it develop, but at the right pace. But this was kind of a bit of a good pretext, had them sort of going into Ferengi as a couple on the pretext of absorbing some of the culture, almost getting found out, by the way, and then having a clever way of, I guess, diffusing that. But it was good to see.
Poor Mickey Mo.
Yes, this is true. Yes, indeed.
Also, there was Mariner and Quimp. There was the Mariner and Quimp dynamic too.
Oh, that's right. Yes, right. Yes, I forgot about him because we saw him briefly in an earlier season, didn't we? Where they had some stuff, an exchange.
We kind of see a bit of Mariner sort of starting to get into the, I guess, what sort of went into more of her aggressive tendencies towards the end of the season, where she's starting to get out of control a bit. She's challenged a bit by her superior there, and having a bit of a moan about that to Quimp, and starting to hit the hard liquor fast, which is was Quimp sort of mentioned, and she's sort of starting to get into this mindset of this how would you call it, just starting to get a bit out of control from this episode, and it kind of grew through the season.
I love the way that they did, set up things like that in earlier episodes that obviously came back to pay off, particularly in the last episode where, that sort of spiral that she was in towards that last episode where she, where we got to find out her mindset of what's going on was set up all the way back in this episode, as you said. So I love the way this the season finale did come back and pay service to all these little kind of moments that happened throughout the course of the season.
And then Captain Freeman wrapped it up with the 8th rule of acquisition, which is small print leads to large risk.
Yeah.
Yes.
I tell you what,
got a nice outcome for the Federation.
Yeah, this is true.
I kind of. So I was going to say that entire ending scene, I thought was brilliant. The fact that the Admiral is literally almost like never seen a Ferengi before, doesn't understand Ferengi, and is just going, "Yeah, you can have whatever you want." And then Freeman comes along and goes, "Yeah, you can have 1,000,000 bars of gold press platinum, but." Another planet.
The Klingon homeworld comes into play.
Exactly.
Yeah. Yes.
But he was opening the checkbook.
Indeed. I mean, overall, I think it was a solid episode. I probably would have liked to see a little bit more of Rom and Lita outside of the negotiating table. I think that the whole episode was basically them across the table just negotiating terms of the treaty sort of thing. I think I would have liked to see a little bit more development and a bit more with them outside of that environment, whether that meant a scene before they came into the negotiations or after the negotiations, but almost the entire exposure of those two characters within the context of this episode was purely at the negotiating table, whether that be on the in the boardroom of the Cerritos or whatever the starship was they're on, or in the Ferengi kind of throne room. I sort of felt like that it kind of needed a little bit more just to kind of fill us in maybe on what Rom and Lita have been up to, how they've been kind of governing things, just a bit of them, at home, outside of that kind of official environment. Do you guys think it could have done with a little bit of extra content that wasn't just at the negotiating table?
Yeah, I think the only thing is the episodes are short. They're 20 to 30 minutes. I think trying to squeeze all of that in would be a push. However, they've left it wide open. And not necessarily just for lower decks, but they've left it wide open as a whole where they could now explore that. Because, I mean, I'd be fascinated to know if the Ferengi join the Federation.
Well, we know they do by the 31st century because we've seen Ferengi captains in Discovery. So
that's a long way away.
but that's a while away. They've got a lot of
6 centuries,
a lot of work to do before they get there, I suppose. So yes,
so I think it's great that they've left it open for not just Lower Decks, but any other series in the future to then explore that. So I think, yes, I would have loved to have seen more of it, but the sacrifice to that is they've left it open, which I actually think makes more sense.
I'd have to agree with Mike there. I think they're probably the constraints of the episode. Something else would have had to have suffered to get that extra context in. But yeah, it's a great opportunity to come back and revisit it. Also, was curious to know whether they'd had any little ones, in between leaving DS9 and the present situation.
Yes. What does a half Ferengi, half Bajoran look like?
Yes,
exactly. Just imagine Lita with Rom's ears. Because I think a few nose bridges might make too much of a difference to a Ferengi. But I think a Bajoran with Ferengi ears would be interesting.
Indeed. Moving on, episode 7, which is entitled "A Few Badgeys More," where we get the return of none other than Badgey himself. We get Agamus, the obviously the evil AI computer played by Jeffrey Combs, and also Peanut Hamper returns as well. Now, I enjoyed this episode, but my only criticism of it is that I really thought leading up to this, this is going to really be like a team up episode where we get Agamus and Peanut Hamper and Badgey, all like the 3 evil mastermind AIs, all coming together to play out this very evil scheme. But it was very much an A story, B story, C story kind of situation where we had we saw a little bit of Agamus and Peanut Hamper at the beginning, and then obviously we had all of the A story with Badgey, and then we had basically Agamus trying to find what Peanut Hamper's gone off to do for the majority of the episode. So even though I had a lot higher expectation of this episode than how it actually played out, I expected it would be a bit more of a bigger kind of team up than it turned out to be. Even though on the whole, I enjoyed the episode, I think I probably just hyped it up a little bit bigger than what it played out to be, because it was so divided and so separated in our evil AIs there. What were you guys' impression?
I loved the A plot. And also that kind of pre-sequence as well. I thought it was really good. I was annoyed that Peanut Hamper was back because I think it's a stupid character, but that's me. I mean, look, Jeffrey Combs, look, anything with him in it is going to be incredible. And, as an actor, he's great. I just thought the entire B plot was a waste of time. I think they spent, I don't know, I just thought it pointless. I think it took away from what could have been a really good episode. I think if they got rid of the B plot and just extended that A plot and delved in a little bit more, I think it would have been a better episode. I'm glad that Badgey's storyline essentially has been concluded because, I love Badgey. Badgey's a character, both good and bad. I love him. He's one of my favorite characters. So to kind of see him go to the koala in the sky, I think was great. And for us to now have Guji around, I think is also great. And we know Guji is serving aboard the Cerritos as we see him later on in the season. Spoiler alert. But yeah, I don't know. I just didn't like the B plot. I mean, I don't like Peanut Hamper. I think it's a stupid character. And to be fair, she's a bitch. When you see her earlier on in the show and the ship's in jeopardy, and she's like, "Now, sod this, I'm off. See you later." It's like, come on, that's not very Starfleet of you. I just didn't like her as a character. So I'm glad that her storyline is kind of concluded as well. Because if we never have to see her again, I'll be happy.
Fair enough. David, what were your thoughts? Because I know you were. This was the episode you were hanging out to see.
It was. I was expecting a trifecta of trouble or a trio of terror. I think, like you said, Nick, it was a bit of a lost opportunity. And like you said, Mike, I think they should have probably put no B story. Just put the three into the mix in an A story. Have a really solid A story. I do like all three characters for different reasons. Even Peanut Hamper's bitchiness, but I think that they sort of it started off interestingly with the domination of that planet that Agamus was like. He kind of got there. He was on board with the plan, and he was starting off with world domination. And where the is Peanut Hamper? She's sort of like finding herself, and what was her father, Kevin? I think it was the other. What do they call those bot things?
Exocomps.
Exocomp. Yeah. And it sort of, I don't know, just sort of didn't live up to the full expectation there. I think, and I think if they'd mixed the three elements together, they could have had a very solid, funny, and probably one of the bangers of the season. I think, but it missed the mark. Yes, Badgey's now probably rest in peace or gone up to the ethereal plane with the space koala, as you mentioned, Mike, wherever that is, maybe with Vija and Decker and people like that. Sorry, it was very topical because I was just watching that today. But so maybe Logie will come in and maybe some old Badgey will come back and affect Logie. And Goodgie bit the dust, didn't Goodgie?
No. I think Goodgie was the one that popped up at the end of the last episode. The cutaway shot of him working in, whether it was engineering or somewhere on the Cerritos, but he was present. I think it was Logicy or something.
Logicy merged back into Goodgie, I think.
Goodgie, right? Okay.
This is where I was getting confused because I thought it's like the Father, the Son, and the Holy Spirit. I always got confused with this as a Catholic child. So trying to get this concept right with. Yeah, sorry, I'm not. I'm just getting spaced out now, like Tally from South Park. If I think about this anymore,
yes. But yeah, no, I think as you said, I think the prospect of what the episode could have been, I think was far greater than what the actual reality of how it turned out. Just I think, as you said, like because they didn't really use. I mean, I think even Agamus, I think, almost felt a little bit diluted because his storyline throughout the course of the episode was him kind of pining for Peanut Hamper, where he was kind of doing his evil, machinations and all that sort of stuff, but it was all kind of, oh, what's Peanut Hamper doing? Is she going to join us? Where's she gone? Is she beating me in whatever she's doing or whatever he was kind of worried about? So there was a large percentage of his screen time that was kind of wrapped up in kind of pining for Peanut Hamper, which I think as a megalomaniacal, genius AI, I think potentially undermined his character a little bit by doing that. So I think that was a potential, weakness as well.
It was probably the red light. I mean, going to a blue light? It went to a neutral light instead of being the red light. The hello, Dave. That sort of evil sort of thing happening. Just went a bit neutral and a bit softer or something. Got lost in the ocean blue of the sea that he was pining for Peanut Hamper on.
It's quite funny. My friend Michael Goodwill, who was my special guest on my season recap this week, he summed it up really well that Agamus is just an MSI desktop.
Yes.
In a server box. Yes, exactly.
Because MSI always switching between red and blue LEDs. So he says, it's just an MSI desktop, which I thought summed it up really well. Yeah, but I would love to see Jeffrey Combs voice Siri. I would.
Yes. Can you get that?
Yes.
Can you get an Agamus GPS or?
Yes, Agamus GPS. Get Agamus to voice your Google Maps or something.
I'll take you to wrong places.
Yes. I need to go to the doctors. No, you're going to the beach. Oh, okay.
Right. Yes.
Yes. Indeed. Okay. So, any other
bit of a call out there? I think we had.
Oh yes, Lloyd's of London. Yes, AI, a program within a program called the Human Condition. Yes. Yeah. Fair enough. Thanks, Lloyds. Much appreciated.
Who knows where they're going to take this AI? Seriously, bit of a segue, but
yes,
I don't know.
just providing it doesn't end up like how it did in the Terminator or the Matrix,
Yeah. And every
or
other
the
sci-fi film
or the Kalon
Dune.
in the Orville, all these various different incarnations of science fiction where yes, AI has wiped out mankind or humankind or whatever. Yeah.
As long as it helps us, but I think if it starts to replicate itself, we become redundant.
Indeed,
as
yes.
a tool, it's good, but only as a tool.
Exactly.
Indeed.
Or do what they did in Battlestar Galactica and just make sure it's not networked to any other, any other computers or whatever. That's the issue.
Command navigation program, wasn't it, or something?
But unfortunately, most of the AI that I use or whatever, particularly with the AI art generating and all that sort of stuff, kind of needs the internet to have reference pictures to work from, I guess. So, yeah. So our next episode, which was called Caves, that was our episode that kind of was a bit of a hark back to all of those episodes of you name it, whether it was Next Generation or Original Series or DS9. They had that cave set built on one of the studios and with the pit, yes, and they would just roll it out whenever they needed, to get our Starfleet officers trapped in a inhospitable planet, and they had to take refuge. Inevitably, they'd get stuck in the cave, and they wouldn't be able to communicate with the ship. And there was inevitably somebody who was always injured. There was always, every time they did a Caves episode, someone would always get badly injured, and they would take refuge. Like I remember there was that Caves episode of Next Generation where I think was Riker and Geordi was stuck on this planet with some Romulans or something in season 3, and then Geordi, the interference from the lightning storms was like basically affecting Geordi's visor, and he was getting really sick, and we had the episode with the final one with Wesley Crusher where didn't Jean-Luc Picard get badly injured or something, and Wesley had to look after him in the cave or whatever in the planet that they were on. But yes, there was always people getting really badly injured in these Caves episodes. I think someone in Enterprise, I think from memory, didn't they beam up somebody from a cave in Enterprise? He ended up with like sticks and leaves and everything growing out of his face because the transporter wasn't working properly, and it beamed up half the countryside with him. Or do you guys remember that? Do you remember that one?
Not so much that one.
Yeah, I'm sure.
It's like he almost became Groot or something.
Well, it was a bit like that. I remember it was him and Trip Tucker, and they were stuck in a cave somewhere, and they didn't want to use the transporter because it was kind of only just literally been approved from transporting cargo to biological stuff, and I think they ended up transporting a red shirt type crew member who ended up with leaves and sticks and everything transported into his face or whatever when they tried to beam him up out of the cave, and they go, oh, we better not do that again. So then we just had to have Trip and Archer stuck in the cave for a bit longer. But yeah, episode Caves. Well, I mean, this was a bit of a bottle show. It didn't relate to anything else that was in the rest of the season. It was, I think Mike McMahon said, this episode was designed as a complete standalone episode, and it didn't, reference anything else that's been going on as part of the rest of the season. What did you guys think of this homage to all of our different cave episodes of Star Trek?
It does make you wonder why they bother exploring caves if they're so dangerous.
Yes. Has there been a cave that wasn't dangerous?
I can't remember a single cave episode where everyone got out fine first time round. But yeah, it was okay. For me, I'm not a massive fan of cave episodes. Full stop. I don't really like them, but I know they're a necessity to save budget. But it was great to see the Vidorians. That was a highlight for me because we've only really seen them in TAS, so it was great to sort of see them remastered, as it were. The flashbacks were funny. I mean, Rutherford's flashback was definitely the best flashback. I loved that flashback. The whole being pregnant with it was just that had me. Tendy's flashback was the only relevant thing to the rest of the show that I can think of, because it does hark back to the first episode of the show where they're all getting to know each other again, which I really liked. I liked that kind of, it does drum home, because I mean, look, through this season they've fought through being promoted. They're no longer sleeping on 3 inches away from each other anymore. They're not working together anymore like they were before. And us as people, we go through that in real life where people get promoted or they move jobs or whatever, and you don't see them as much. So to kind of have them sort of relive what we go through on the day-to-day throughout this season, I really enjoyed. And then to have that flashback which kind of brings them closer together again, I really enjoyed. I didn't like Mariner's flashback. I just thought the whole leg thing, a lot of celery had to have been broken in that.
Oh, right. Yes.
If you don't know, celery is used for bone crunching in Foley.
Yes.
But yeah, it was okay. It's to be blunt, it's my least favorite episode of the season. Followed closely by episode 5, but it was okay. Just an okay from me on that one.
Okay, David.
I think for me it was kind of like it was actually good to see the team be a team again. Like you sort of mentioned, Mike, where there'd been that separation since promotion. There's been very distinct A and B stories, and I have the feeling, like I definitely had the impression that's put the brakes on a little bit in some of the episodes this season. It's been quite noticeable, but it wasn't a massive standout episode either for myself. You had probably 4 distinct little storiettes in the main one. Yes, that chip in a bottle type episode, which at least wasn't going back to episodes they've done. That would have been too cheesy. But it was probably good to see a little bit of that. But I think, again, I like the Vendorians to see them, because I remember seeing them in the animated series, and the little mind games that they go through and things like this with their victims. I think there was a bit of a Wolf 359 conspiracy commentary going on as well within the episode.
That's right. Yes.
It's been called out a few times. And I did like the pregnancy thing. Was was it Thea or I can't remember the clone baby's name, but the character Thora or something. My spell check called it Thus. My spell check transferred the name to Thus.
Okay.
So,
that reminded me of the Enterprise episode where Trip Tucker did that holodeck experience with that alien woman and ended up growing a baby out of his chest or something. I think it was in the first season. I'm pretty sure it was the first season of Enterprise. They had that episode.
That just reminds me of a bad episode of Alien, to be fair.
Yeah, that's true. Yes.
and quite a similarity there to the Gorn a little bit too. I was noticing with the Vendorian sort of rituals or procreation habits or birthing habits. It was kind of a little.
This is true.
Darker element there.
Indeed. But I think that, as you say, I think definitely despite the ludicrous nature of it, I think the Mariner flashback with the was it the pocket in the cave where time was accelerated or whatever, and they're doing all of the the usual old person gags and all that sort of stuff. Oh, broken my hip and all this sort of stuff. I think that was probably the more entertaining side of it. But yeah, as you said, David, great to see the Vendorians in that episode. They always do like to do a bit of a hark back to some of the animated series aliens and so forth in Lower Decks. There's never a season that goes by where one of the alien races that's featured in an animated series doesn't get a mention at some point or another in Lower Decks. So good on them for bringing them back.
Just on the animated series, though, and perhaps the more recent animated series, please, 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 never bring back that race, the snot race. You know the one I'm talking about, the snot race. Just never again, please. I don't ever want to see that again.
They didn't even give them a name in that. The way the Riker first was it the worst contact episode of. The very short treks. Yes. Oh my God. That was a shocker.
It was.
Deary me.
Bit on the nose, that one.
Yeah, very, very, very much so. Very much so. Moving on to episode 9, The Inner Fight. This was our sort of part 1 of our 2-part finale episode in Lower Decks, where this episode had a bit of intrigue, a bit of interest or whatever. We obviously had some stuff going on with the this which we thought was going to be we thought this guy was I thought this guy was going to have something to do with the mystery ship or whatever, some sort of mysterious bounty hunter type character. But obviously that didn't necessarily pan out that way. It was a bit of a build up with that bounty hunter character that sort of didn't end up going anywhere, amazingly. But I must say I did like I did like the this bloke. What was his name in was it Balok or something?
Yeah, Balok,
Balok in the original series, where you go, oh yeah, it's one of because was it Freeman just sort of said, oh yes, you're just a puppet or whatever, and she starts
him up and shakes the
shakes the shit out of him. Poor bugger, he's like he's all traumatized and everything. Yeah,
it's amazing he didn't offer him that drink. What was that drink that Balok offered? It looked like cordial or something.
Yeah,
Yancia or something. Or I can't remember what it was, but yeah, it's amazing.
Because as soon as I saw this guy, I thought, oh, we're going to get Clint Howard coming and doing his, little crazy baby kind of, character that we saw in original series, but not at all. And this actually probably played out far more humorously because of it. What were you guys' impressions?
So I think if you missed the fact that Mike McMahon said that it's a 2-parter finale, and let's take episode 10 out of the equation for the moment, I felt that the episode as a whole was really good. However, they went to Tatooine with the Mandalorian.
Yes, yes, exactly. This is very true. I was looking at the landscapes in this episode, and it's like, that's the Tatooine Cantina. That's Jabba's palace. Yep. That's the main street of Tatooine. It's like there was not even any
even try to hide it.
Try to hide it? No, not at all. It was straight out of Star Wars,
which I thought was hilarious. I just thought that was brilliant. But when you when you go back to the plot line with, Mariner's been essentially on a path of self-destruction. Freeman has now gone, why the hell is my daughter trying to kill herself? We need to now find this really, really safe mission for her. And I'm just thinking to myself, you're going to a weather buoy or subspace buoy. I can't remember which one it was. And I'm just thinking, hang on a second. That's never going to be good, because that's how the Klingon War started in Discovery. So buoys are never they're never a safe bet. And then we see that flash, they get through the buoy, and then the warbird attacks the Yosemite. And I'm going to myself, hang on a second, we've seen these Klingons before, and we have. Not only did we see them earlier on in the season, we also saw them last season. And then the first thing that went through my head is where's the captain? Because we know who the captain is, because there was that whole thing about how the Targ ended up standing up for him, and then, he killed the captain and took over the warbird. So I'm thinking, well, hang on a second, where's the captain? So we then get down to this planet where we then see, oh, okay, there's all of these races that have had their ships destroyed or stolen in this case, and they're all kind of just fighting each other. And the one thing that I really liked here is that heart-to-heart that Mariner has with the Klingon captain after the glass rain getting stabbed again. I've decided that Mariner's body must literally be like a cheese grater at this point, because she's been stabbed way too many times over the course of the show, bless her.
Yes, but at least in that previous episode, she just kept getting stabbed in the same place spot, over and over and over again.
Exactly.
So it's just one really big scar.
But yeah, so I love the heart-to-heart. Now, the only negative bit, and this is why I said you have to kind of ignore episode 10, is you know, we know Nick Locarno is in the, you know, we know he's got something to do with it because that is the B plot. They're trying to find Nick's location. So, okay. And I do feel like that they threw Sito's name in for the sake of it here. Now, obviously, this is because we haven't seen, you know, episode 10 yet, which it does now make more sense. But the way that they did it in this kind of flashback scene and this kind of heart-to-heart was the fact it just felt like it was just shoved in and, oh, well, because we've got Locarno, we need to bring somebody else in. And, well, we can't bring in, you know, Wesley because we know where he is already and, you know, and all of this kind of stuff. So I just felt like they just threw a name in for the sake of it, which I think it could have been written better. And I think if we'd seen some of the beginning of episode 10, and I'm not going to give it away just yet, but that scene at the beginning of episode 10, if we'd seen some of that in that heart-to-heart scene, I think it would have made a lot more sense. And then the rest of the episode I really enjoyed. And then Mariner just being beamed up by Locarno and then aboard the ship, and then the episode ends. We then actually figure out that the Mandalorian is Billups, which I thought was hilarious because of all the people who to play a tough man, you would not be a Billups. So yeah, and as I say, it was a good episode. It was a really good episode. I just think there were bits of it that they could have written better to, you know, maybe explain it a little bit more, or stream both episodes at the same time back to back and have episodes 9 and 10 available at the same time, which I think would have made more sense. Now episode 10 is out and we've seen it, I actually now take back some of the comments that I did have quite critically about that whole thing. But yeah, that's my only kind of gripe was that, you know, we're going to throw Sito's name in for the sake of it, kind of. That's how it was portrayed.
Yeah, I think, as you said, I think if they'd have released 9 and 10 as like a 1 hour finale, I probably would have, I think those issues would have probably not been as, you know, as great. No. But what did you think, David?
Speaking of which, was this the first to be continued in Lower Decks, or have they had one before?
Yeah, I think it might be. Yeah.
Okay. But yeah, look, I'd agree a lot with what Mike said there. But it was I sort of saw a bit of B'Elanna from Voyager being channeled through Mariner, particularly when she sort of found out about what happened to the Maquis after the Dominion War. So there's a little bit of a parallel there, which was quite interesting. And again, I think cave time. This was good cave time rather than bad cave time. With Maha is Ma'a. I'm terrible with the names, but that was the captain. I think that she was having the touching moments with. It was really interesting, her going through her reasons about, you know, she joined up not for exploration and all of the good things that the Federation stands for, rather than getting, you know, all the baggage that comes with the Dominion War and the loss and the tragedy and stuff. It was quite a serious tone actually for a show like that.
Absolutely.
So it's a bit of a different dynamic to what I've probably seen in a lot of the, you know, past episodes. But I thought it was quite good. But you do have to take it in context with you know, episode 10 and you know, with Sito. I also had to sort of go, hang on, who was that again? Oh yeah, okay. But why was that? There was a bit of that going on. So it made more sense in episode 10.
Absolutely, yeah. Seeing the opening of episode 10, it filled in, you know, any of those blanks in the memory, so to speak.
Exactly.
But yeah, like I think it was a good episode, despite obviously the little bits and pieces like the Tatooine reference and everything that we were talking about before. And I think Mariner having that survivor's guilt, where, you know, obviously you could see in that first flashback scene in episode 10, where she really looked up to Sito and Nova Squadron, you know, because at that point, I'm pretty sure that Mariner was like a first year student, whereas the other guys in that group were like final year students. So I guess she was kind of following them around, you know, like with a bit of hero worship, and essentially, you know, she's gone after leaving the academy. Although I think she had to stay down a year, because remember at the end of the episode, I think it was at the first duty, the Admiral said that Nova Squadron had their class credit or something cancelled for that year, so they had to redo a year. of Starfleet Academy because of that incident. They had their whatever assignments that they'd done or whatever it was, that essentially got scrubbed and they had to repeat that year. So whether that meant that Sito then moved into a another year level that was closer to Mariner's, which then had them bonding more, and then she ended up on the Enterprise and off doing secret missions into Cardassian space and getting herself killed. And then obviously, and then Mariner kind of sees herself as a bit of a screw up, and she's kind of survived. So that we're looking at that sort of survivor's guilt play out, where it's like, I've been a bit of a goof off all my life, and I'm still alive. Yep. She was the top of her class, and the epitome of what a Starfleet officer should be. Obviously, despite the whole Nova Squadron incident. And she just, obviously all of the stuff we've seen with Mariner being very sort of playing it fast and loose with issues of safety and everything, all kind of stem from this, this one incident of feeling like that she doesn't deserve to live compared with this friend of hers, Sito, at the Academy. So I thought that was a really good way of tackling the core of what Mariner is as a character and why she is the way she is. And whether we see her in the next season, I guess, change a little bit now that we know that that's her kind of thing, and that she's kind of acknowledged and has that, foresight to look at her behavior and go, hey, maybe in the future I'm not going to be quite so, gung-ho with things or whatever. So it'll be interesting to see if they change Mariner a bit going forward. Do you guys think that's a likelihood?
Yeah, yes, I think we're definitely going to see a more grown-up Mariner now going forward. But I also kind of see a little bit of Deanna Troi there. If you go back to that episode in TNG where Troi goes through the command program, there is that whole thing about you have to send people to their death. And I think that plays back to why Mariner was acting the way that she does, because she never wants to do that. So I kind of see that kind of similarity there. And I think now that Mariner has got past that, I think we're going to see her, a little bit more like that flashback. I mean, I thought it was quite fun to see that, young, because the other thing as well is we don't really until now fully get the age of Mariner. Because if you think about it, this is 15 years have gone past. So she's in her 30s at this point.
Yeah, well, it's like third. If you're assuming that she's in Starfleet Academy when she's 19 or 20, then she's in her early 30s. I mean, which I guess is, I mean, going by what obviously she pretty much looked obviously like Tawny Newsome when she appeared in Strange New Worlds at that age. So it kind of tracks that I mean, I'm not sure how old Tawny Newsome is.
Incredible for her age. So
yeah, I mean, does anyone know how old Tawny Newsome is? I mean,
I think she's 40.
Seriously?
40. Yeah.
Wow.
I think she looks incredible for her age.
Absolutely.
But yeah, I think the only negative thing there is we've now dated Mariner. She is now that, she's that, 30-something ensign that's never progressed. Kind of reminds me a little bit of Harry Kim, a little bit, that, she's going to be stuck as this, lower decker that never progresses through a career. But I think it's great that she's now worked past that.
Hang on. Where am I?
Your camera.
Hang on. Oh, sorry, it's not focusing.
There we go.
Yeah.
Get out. Wow.
Yeah.
She looks incredible for her age.
Totally.
Yeah. But yeah, I think we're going to see a more grown-up Mariner, and we're going to see a Mariner that's closer to what we saw at that beginning. I thought it was great to see that young cadet go, oh my God, I'm really excited to be a xenobiologist, and I'm really excited to do this, compared to the Mariner goes, I can't be asked to have done this before, I did this on DS9 and, whatever. She's been very blasé about a lot of things for the first, 3.9 seasons. So I think it's going to be great to see a different Mariner going forward.
Indeed.
I think Boimler was also going through earlier in the season some challenges with that decision-making process and being promoted and having to put people in harm's way. So there was probably an interesting parallel there. But it's great to see the progression and that through the series. I just hope it doesn't, how would you say, affect the more humorous elements of the show and the dynamic. I think there's a way to cleverly do that to keep the forward momentum on character development and career development in this case, but also keeping the dynamic there and the characters together and, having us laughing as well as crying sometimes.
I mean, I think we don't know what's going on with Tendi. We know that she's now gone back to the Orion, but whether that's a permanent thing, whether that's a case that she's only going to be back a few times, we have Talin, who looks like she's going to be a regular going forward, who is that typical emotionless Vulcan. So I think what we might end up seeing is some of Tendi in Mariner. Some of that, not hyperactive, oh my God, I'm excited for everything, but to have someone that's a bit more open and a little bit more positive about life rather than the doom and gloom that Mariner has been.
The glass half empty cup.
Yeah.
This is true, yeah. So in in this last episode, obviously we also got, apart from just talking about Sito before, we obviously got to see Josh. What was his last name? The cadet that died, Josh Albert. That's right, Josh Albert, who died in the Colvard Starburst maneuver accident or whatever, and of course Wesley Crusher as well. I thought this was great to see this little get together here, which I guess seemed to be like maybe a few days before leading up to the accident. Like you kind of got the impression that Wesley Crusher was saying, "Hey, this is like a pretty serious maneuver we're all attempting here. We need to kind of test this out a bit more in the holodeck just to make sure we got it right and everything." So you kind of get the impression that this little flashback scene was sort of a few days prior to the because what was the event that they were doing? That was it like some sort of commencement address or some sort of
graduation, wasn't it?
Yeah. So seeing all these guys together, although they admitted, who was the other member of Nova Squadron? Hajar, someone, I think her name was Hajar or something. There was like another member that was completely omitted from this. So we had we had Wesley Crusher, Nick Lucano, Sito, Josh Albert, and the other one just completely got omitted from this little group altogether. Which I thought, how come she's not in it? Because there was definitely another
5 shuttles, aren't there?
Yes.
There was, yes, yeah.
So I thought that was odd that they would put all these guys in the scene together, but they would leave her out because you think they would all be kind of hanging out together, which sort of seemed a little odd. Yeah. I mean, did you guys? I kind of almost expected we were going to get more of a second flashback moment in the episode, because I thought at the opening. It was kind of a bit of a brief flashback scene. I thought, oh well, they've got Will Wheaton in to voice Wesley Crusher. I kind of thought, oh, there's sure to be another little moment or whatever where they do a bit of a flashback as well. But the one at the start was the only one in the episode. Did you guys thought that another? You think that flashback scene ticked the box? That's all we needed to see. We needed to see Mariner. Giving a bit of fan worship to Nova Squadron and cementing her into that place and time and that group at Starfleet Academy. Do you think that was all we needed, or do you think that there could have been another opportunity, somewhere in the episode to have another little flashback as well?
I think, yeah. I mean, I don't think another flashback would have helped with anything, just with the way that the episode progresses. I don't think there was a need for it. I think maybe the flashback could have been a little bit longer, maybe.
Mm-hmm.
But I think, trying to cram everything into an episode, and this is obviously, I think this is the longest Lower Decks episode ever, 30 minutes, dead.
Yep.
So I think they tried to cram so much in here anyway that I think that they made the right call with leaving it how they've left it.
Indeed. And as Chuck just pointed out, Shannon Phil, who was the actress who played Sito in this episode, I was looking her up on IMDb to kind of say, oh, what's she done since she played this role in Next Generation? The answer is almost nothing. I think she did a guest appearance on some other show in the 90s, and that was pretty much it. She seemed to retire from acting almost like a year or two after taking this role on Star Trek. So I'm not sure how Mike McMahon convinced her to come back to do the voice, because she hasn't acted in anything since about 1996, I think. So
unless she's Patrick Stewart and says, I'm not wearing a Starfleet uniform again because it destroyed my back.
Right.
Maybe that's part of the reason why she retired, was because, wearing those lovely Starfleet uniforms in thick wool might have been enough to put her off of acting. But I suppose when you're doing a voice acting job, you don't need to worry about that, do you?
This is true. And what did you go? Looks like David. We've lost David from it for some reason. Don't ask me why. Every single time we do a live show, David's internet drops out. Generally once throughout the course of the show. It only happens once, and he normally comes back within a few minutes of the dropout. But I think every single episode that we've done of Sci-Finatics Live, David has vanished about halfway through, and then returned shortly thereafter. So we're just maintaining the continuity of that action, I guess you'd say. So Mike, what did you think of the use of the Orion ship, the getting the Orion ship there? They obviously had to, do some negotiation with Tendy's sister. Is it Erica or Erica?
Yeah,
Erica.
They like putting random letters in front of their name, don't they? Because you got Tendy,
yes,
the T, and then you got Erica.
Yes.
I don't know. I mean, I think they made the best of a bad situation after. I mean, I loved seeing the Twin Twains again. That was hilarious. I like the Twin Twains. And he's back. So I like to see the Twin Twains again. And I think, genuinely, it was just we've got a ship that it literally is a floating, garbage truck that's got nothing works. So I think, they made the best of a bad situation by essentially ramming it into the shield and blowing it up. I quite enjoyed it, to be fair. I mean, and it's also that Orion ship, we've actually seen that design before, or very, very, very similar design before, and I cannot remember why. Someone put it on Twitter this morning, and I can't remember what it was.
Because we haven't seen too many Orion ships over the history of Star Trek.
But it's not. It wasn't. Hang on, I'm now going to go hunting for it. Bear with me. It wasn't Orion.
Yes. David, while you're hunting for it, David, you tell us what you thought of the whole, borrowing the Orion ship to slam it into the big shield and everything there to do all that.
Yes, it reminds me of a World War II operation with the destroyer that was rammed through the gates to. There was a famous World War II operation where they rammed a destroyer through a French port to mess it up so the Germans couldn't launch submarines or something. So it was quite similar to that, actually. I should know the name of the ship. I just can't put my finger on it right now. But
I found it.
It was
So it's so essentially Yorg Hillerbrand, good old Yorg. In one of the oldest Star Trek traditions of reusing and redressing starship designs, the Orion destroyer Retribution in Lower Decks. It seems to be a redress or heavily inspired by the Hirogen Venatak class.
Yes. Yes. Okay.
It's almost identical.
Mm.
So whether the Orions have obtained some Hirogen tech, who knows? But there we go. Little tidbit for you.
Mm.
Yeah, I mean, I guess they figured we didn't really see Hirogen ships super often in Voyager. And it's not one of those ship designs. A bit like those. There was a few episodes like that in Voyager where was it other race, the Krenim or something?
The Krenim.
Kurt Smith was that the Year of Hell double parter or something? Yeah. There's a few starship designs there that came in. We saw them once or twice, and then we pretty much never saw them again. So I guess they figure, hey, no one's going to remember this. We can
unintentionally. We know Mike McMahon likes to go hunting for things from other Trek shows, which I love. I love all those little Easter eggs that we see throughout his episodes. That his show, as it were. They're just these little tidbits that a lot of people just overlook, but us diehard Trekkies will find them somehow or another.
Indeed. And what did you guys think of the bit with because I was wondering how they're going to handle this in the episode where we've got Boimler and Rutherford on the bridge of the Cerritos, and Rutherford's going. He looks like Tom Paris. He's got the same face, and Boimler's just going, "What? I don't see it." I thought that was fantastic.
I think that sums up Lower Decks. They will find all these points of contention that we have had for years, like the whole: is Tom Paris a clone? Is he, Locarno with another name? Because us Trekkies, we like to poke holes at where we can. So I think it was hilarious to kind of poke holes at the fact that we're poking holes.
Yes.
But also the fact that Lower Decks has got this really great tradition of doing it, but not dragging it on. They do it once, they do it well, they move on, they don't linger over it, which I just thought was great. And just for the two of them to be back and forthing about it, I just thought was brilliant because it's all conversations that we've all had over the years anyway.
Yes, as you said, I had a lot of very cross comments from people who wanted them to say that that he was Tom Paris all along, and he just went to Starfleet Academy and changed his name when he was at Starfleet Academy because he was an admiral's son and he didn't want any special favoritism, so that he went to Starfleet Academy under a different name, but he was really Tom Paris all along. Which kind of seems a little bit odd. I didn't have any problem. I've never had any problem with the whole Tom Paris Nick Locarno comparison, because my understanding was that they actually were originally going to make Nick Locarno the character in Voyager, but then they realized they would need to pay the writer of the First Duty episode royalties for every single episode of Voyager if they use that character, because whoever the writer was owned the rights to creating that character. Therefore, they kind of didn't want to pay 7 seasons of 26 episodes a season worth of royalties to the original writer. So they just figured, he was only in one episode, let's just call him a different name and just give him, he's essentially the same character, but we'll just call him something different, and then we don't have to worry about paying royalties.
But does that mean that story before? Admiral Locarno then?
Yeah, yes.
Instead of Admiral Paris.
I mean, that's true. Yeah.
I just think it's one of those things that we just have to kind of get on with. I mean, everybody knows that actors play multiple roles.
Well, the one time that they've done that which it did kind of bug me a little bit, was in Star Trek Picard season 2, when the actor who played the FBI agent was also the first officer on that time ship or whatever from that Voyager episode. I forget his name. I think his name was Wells. Marty Wells was his name in Picard. And you think, okay, well, Marty McFly, Wells, H.G. Wells. He's a time traveler. The same actor played, I forget the character's name. He was in the Relativity episode of Voyager, and he was the first officer that ended up taking over the ship because the captain ended up being the crook, and he was the first officer on board the whole temporal Starfleet temporal agency or whatever it was, which again came back or whatever in that episode of Strange New Worlds last season with Kirk and La'an going back to Toronto in 21st century or whatever. But yeah, I thought because they were referencing so many things that were, with this character, he's called Marty Wells. Oh, he's got to be a time traveler. He's in this past, and he was a sort of a government agent type. I was just waiting for the moment in that where he was gonna be revealed as being that character, but it obviously never happened because Jay Carnes, who played the role, was obviously friendly with Terry Matalas. Jay Carnes played a FBI agent in several episodes of 12 Monkeys, which was Terry Matalas's show before and everything. So obviously, there's another connection there. But yeah, that kind of, I guess because it was a time travel thing, and they gave him these time travel names, and it was the actual class of the ship. His name was Wells. The name of the class of that time ship in Voyager was a Wells class ship. There was just so many things pointing to it. And when it didn't kind of pan out, it's like you guys set up so many arrows pointing to this guy being the same character, and it didn't pan out to be the case. It's like that sort of felt like a bit of a bit of a tease, and then it didn't it didn't go anywhere. But anyway, that's just my rant for the stream.
Okay, off the soapbox now.
Off the soapbox, yeah.
Duquesne, thank you, Chuck. Yes, yes, Duquesne. I forget what his something Duquesne, wasn't it? I can't remember what his first name was. Yes. And yes, as Tim just said, relatively was world-class ship too. Yes, exactly.
Yeah.
And what did we think about all of the different races and everything being deposited on the planet, living in a bit of a sort of a Lord of the Flies kind of style existence or whatever there, and everything in that last episode? It sort of struck me as a little because it seemed like that Locarno's agenda was to recruit other lower deckers to join his Nova fleet. So I thought, well, if he's doing that, why is he taking their ships, putting them all around this sort of starbase setup that he had, and then just depositing all of the crews on this planet to kind of fight it out, Lord of the Flies style? That kind of seemed like, how does that line up with his agenda? Did you guys think that or not?
A little bit. I mean, the thing is, though, everybody that was on the planet wasn't a lower decker. So everybody that was on that planet was either a senior member of the crew or a higher up member of the crew. So all the people that are left are the lower deckers. However, a ship needs X amount of people to operate. So either they've stolen...
Apart from that Steamrunner class that Mariner stole, apparently.
Do you know what? I was so excited when I saw that ship. We just see this black silhouette. We don't know what it is. She gets aboard the bridge. We've got blue L cars, very reminiscent of Nemesis, and we've got that very, very iconic red and beige bridge set. So we know it's an older ship. And then, of course, the camera pans out and it's fucking Steamrunner class, We've only seen it twice before, So I thought it was great to see Steamrunner, and little ship holds its own. I think it holds its own pretty well. But yeah, sorry, going back onto that, I think they must have some kind of computer or something that is taking on the jobs of all of these people that aren't. And I think that could also be possibly the lure to why you would want to join Nova Fleet, is that, they're no longer binars, are they? He's got 3 of them, so they're trinars, hence
trinars. Yes, shield, yes.
But also, then that puts a little bit of character development on that species, the fact that you can have 3 of them working together and not just in pairs, which I thought was quite interesting. So I think there must be something else going on there, other than trying to recruit lower deckers. But that's the only thing I can think of with that.
Okay.
So probably separating out the command elements from the lower deckers. I guess that's probably the Lord of the Rings. The seniors will go to the Lord of the Rings. The lower deckers will go to the Starbase.
Lord of the Flies, do you mean?
Lord of the Flies. What is that? Lord of the Rings? No, sorry, wrong franchise. Absolutely.
Yes. But yeah, in this last episode, I did love the fact that so many elements that we had seen during the course of the season, from the introduction of De'Erica to the Ferengi and the Ferengi Genesis device,
which had a paywall. I thought that was hilarious.
Which had a paywall, yes.
Put the paywall
yes,
on
disarm the bomb. Please deposit 1 bar of latinum.
2 bars.
Yes.
2
bars. It was 2 bars. 2 bars of
Inflation.
latinum. Oh, yeah.
It costs a lot to disarm a bomb.
Yes. Yes. But the fact we had that, we had obviously, the continuation of what they'd set up in previous episodes with Mariner's spiraling of, gung-ho safety attitudes and all that sort of stuff. And I think that, and we had the Samuel Clements, Mark Twain holodeck program thing come back. We had Livik, the Newman of Lower Decks, obviously. Yeah.
Arch nemesis, yeah.
Yes. All of those elements, I thought the way that they kind of tied everything into that last episode and everything that had kind of been set up in other episodes previous came back to have some use in the last episode, which I thought that was a really nice way of sort of tying up the bow of the season, I thought.
Yeah, definitely. And I think that's one of the things that Lower Decks does extremely well. It's the little details.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, the best example I can think of that is episode 1 of this season. There isn't a shot aboard Voyager where there isn't some kind of little detail, whether it's a lizard, whether it's whether it's just Neelix cheese or whatever it is. But every little detail there, it always finds a way of being useful later on. And it's one of the things I think Lower Decks does extremely well. It is those little details.
We had an example of that in the last episode with the Nova Fleet insignia being the
Hulbert Starburst.
Hulbert Starburst.
Yeah, sort of emblem, which was quite interesting.
Yeah.
But also at the same time, who would have thought Nick Lucano?
Yes.
has been
random.
Entire season.
Yeah, I mean, I totally thought as soon as Robert Duncan McNeil was cast in Voyager, I just, as I suppose many of us would have thought, well, we're never going to see Nick Lucano ever again in any Star Trek, because now that actor is Tom Paris, they're just going to sweep the whole Nick Lucano character under the rug, and he will never be mentioned, spoken of, or heard from ever again in Star Trek. But I was wrong.
Well, we all were.
Yes, absolutely. So overall, just overall kind of thoughts of the season as a whole. How do you guys think it kind of stacked up, based on previous seasons of Lower Decks?
Definitely.
You think it was
really? It was a really good season. I think it's definitely my favorite season, to be sure. My only kind of gripe with it is it started off so strong. Episodes 1 and 2 were absolutely outstanding, and then it kind of dipped. There were peaks and troughs, but it definitely dipped, especially when you kind of get to episode 5.
That was the Betazoid episode, wasn't it?
I hated that episode.
Yeah.
But yeah, and I just think it dipped, and then it's gradually sort of found its way back up again, and then it's ended on a really, really good high, and it's left lots open to be explored next season. But yeah, as a season overall, and the things I have to say, those episodes that dipped, they're still like 8.5 out of 10. They are no way, shape, or form bad episodes on their own. I just think when you're trying to compare them with episodes 1, 2, 9, and 10, they are the lesser of the episodes, if you know what I mean. I'm not saying any episode is a bad episode, because they are still very good episodes on their own. But I think when you're trying to compare them with everything else that's happened in the season, I think that it's a tough job. But yeah, as a whole, I've really loved the season, and it's my favourite Lower Decks season for sure.
David?
Yeah, look, I think for me it had its ups and downs, and I would agree with Mike. The downs were, like by no means, clangers or anything like that. I think like the highlights for me would be the Tuvix one. I love the I have no bones yet I must flee with Moopsy. That was just love Moopsy, and I'm waiting for those T-shirts that be on Etsy from Bree. By the way,
found out yesterday that QMX are bringing out Moopsy plushies.
Oh, okay.
I'm ordering
Excellent.
30 of them. No.
Like tribbles.
I wonder how big they are.
Don't know. But I mean, if you don't know, QMX have just recently bought by Master Replicas as well. So it'd be interesting to see how that happens. But yeah, apparently QMX are bringing out some Moopsy plushies, which, yeah, I think everyone will be over like, hotcakes, as they say.
Provided they're not too big, I'll be getting one for the shelf in the background there.
I mean, I've got some tribbles down here.
Provided they're not like this big or anything,
Oh, I don't know. I mean, I quite like a 3-foot Moopsy plushie.
Nick, put some in your store. Put some in your store.
Yeah. I've been thinking of an angle for yes, like a t-shirt design. Whether you have on the front of the t-shirt, you have the very cute, big-eyed Moopsy, and on the back you have the one with the jaws open and the vicious one.
Go for one attacking one of the bananas in pajamas. That would be good. I don't know how you go with the ABC there, right. But maybe like some copyright issues with good old Auntie. Or that's the Australian version of Beep, BBC. But yes, see how you go there. But yeah, also something borrowed, something green. That was also another standout for me. And I think both of those world building episodes, the Ferengi one as well, that was also very good. And look, it was quite good. And also good to see the dynamic in them making progress within their ranks, the challenges that they faced with that, getting into some more deep and meaningful and soul building elements, particularly for some of the characters there, and then even leaving at the end a little bit of a Tindy topic, in terms of what's the future for Tindy. It's kind of like see what happens in that space. But yeah, it was a good season.
It was, yeah. I think it was definitely a solid season. But the question, the question now, though, there's been obviously a little bit of speculation that the overall ratings has been down. That's the fact that is Lower Decks in trouble, because I got a sense from some stuff that had been going around the media that maybe the numbers were down this season a little bit, and under the light that basically what happened with Star Trek Prodigy being sold off and everything, and that being abandoned by Paramount and CBS, the fact that Lower Decks is safe is no longer kind of a certainty, I think, and there has been a little bit of speculation: is are we going to get a fifth season? Is there a danger that Lower Decks could potentially go the way of Prodigy? Maybe maybe the fourth season could potentially be its last, which would be a shame. But I definitely I kind of get where it's coming from, because if you can track to a certain extent, I can track the popularity of Star Trek series just on the basis of how many views all my different videos get, whether I'm doing a review on Lower Decks, a review on Star Trek Picard, Strange New Worlds, or whatever. I can clearly see what is popular and what people are engaging with just by the viewership of the content that I'm producing. And I've got to say that the viewership numbers on my Lower Deck stuff this season has been down from the last season. So if that is anything to go by, it definitely seems like there's a bit of a lull in interest in Lower Decks this season. So what do you guys think about that?
I don't necessarily think it's an interest thing. I think what's happened is a lot of people are frustrated about what is happening in Hollywood at the moment. And I think a lot of people are voicing their concerns with that by finding alternative ways of watching. That I think is probably the most apt way of doing it. I know I was reading an article that I was looking at, because I keep my ears and eyes open on a lot of things, that actually some of the most torrented TV shows the last 6 months is Star Trek Lower Decks. So whether it's a case of that people are choosing not to watch it on things like Paramount Plus and trying to obtain it in other ways, because after what happened with Prodigy, which I have to say, I am so excited for season 2, and I'm so glad that they found a new home. But the way that Paramount dealt with that, I think, was really bad. That you could only get the first 10 episodes on any streaming, on anywhere, whether it was iTunes, Amazon, it didn't matter. There was no DVD or Blu-ray release of it. So overnight, 10 episodes just vanished off the face of the earth. So I think, and that led a lot of people to obtain alternative copies. And I think a lot of people are worried that Paramount can do that again with anything. So I think what's happened is a lot of people are obtaining them in different ways and not necessarily watching them through the streaming service, which will have a negative effect on the numbers. And I think that's what's happened.
David, what are your thoughts?
Yeah, it's an interesting one. Look, I think it's probably is people finding different ways to watch it. I mean, and secure it for the future. I guess in that sense, streaming's not forever. We're seeing this in other franchises too. I mean, if I mention Doctor Who, some of the classic stuff there, there's shots across the bow in terms of we sort of coming away from physical media and things. But yeah, look, it's definitely a very divisive time with, as you said, Mike, what's happening in Hollywood and things. And I think it's just a case of time will tell. Maybe it's too early to judge the temperature in the bath at this time. I think we probably need to see how the next 6 to 12 months pan out and things settle down with everything with the current topics in Hollywood.
Definitely.
Yeah, but watch and see.
Also, I think a lot of people like to, especially with things like Lower Decks, where they are 20-odd minutes, a lot of people like to binge them. So I think what you might find is a lot of people have waited for the season to finish so that they can smash through it in a day. I think, especially when it comes to animation, that's a lot easier than traditional Star Trek episodes that are 45 minutes to an hour long. It's a lot harder to binge watch an entire season of those in a single day. So I think that's what's also happened is a lot of people have waited to the season's over. So there might be a huge shock spike. Plus, at the moment, there's loads of great stuff out at the moment. I've been struggling to catch up on a lot of stuff, and For All Mankind's just about to start again, which is one of my favorite shows at the moment. You've got loads of new stuff that's just popped up as well on Apple TV Plus and Paramount and Netflix. So I think a lot of people they're spoiled for choice. And I think that's why a lot of people maybe have waited so that they can just smash through it in an afternoon rather than watching one episode a week, because they are 20-odd minutes long rather than being the full 45 minutes to an hour.
I don't think you can just judge it purely on ratings. I think you've got to take the whole package into how are people consuming this. You've got so many choices. A good point you raised there, Mike, in the sense that they're often competing choices. So it would be tragic if we just used one ruler to measure everything against when it's not giving you the complete picture of success or failure. What does success look like? Yeah. Is it just the initial ratings, or is it more than that? Is it
Prodigy is a great example of that.
Yeah. And I think you got to remember too, like everybody's got such a short attention span now, particularly I mean, you got to remember, like back in the days of Next Generation or whatever, the ratings weren't that great for maybe the first season or two. And it wasn't until the third season where it really kind of completely took off. It kind of struggled a little bit, when it first started and everything. People forget that. And everybody is so short attention span these days with social media platforms and everything. And it's almost like if they don't smash it out of the park right from episode 1 and it's got ridiculous ratings and everything, oh my God, it's a failure. Like, no, like we don't need to be so doom and gloom just because, as you rightly said, there is a lot of people out there who might wait until the whole season's dropped and then I'll get around to watching it all and they'll binge it over a course of a whole weekend. You can't just necessarily put it down to what the ratings are just for this episode or whatever, because people are so the way they, as you said, consume content is so different. What one person might do is completely different to how another person might watch stuff. So you got to take all that sort of stuff into consideration, don't you?
Exactly.
So yeah, so moving on from Lower Decks. Obviously, we know we mentioned Prodigy briefly before. Obviously, since the last live stream, Prodigy has obviously been saved by Netflix. Great to see that we are in fact going to be getting Prodigy at some time during the course of 2024, which I think is fantastic news. I was always pretty confident, as the Hagemans were, in their various different posts on Twitter and everything, saying that they were pretty, 95% confident that the show would find a home. And I guess it makes sense that I'm not sure where all the Star Trek content can be found in the UK there, Mike, but Netflix is certainly the streaming service in Australia that has the most amount of Star Trek content. In fact, I think the only Netflix has got Next Generation, it's got original series, it's got DS9, it's got Voyager, it's got animated series. It's only I think Picard and Lower Decks are on Amazon Prime Video, and Strange New Worlds and Discovery are on Paramount Plus. But yeah, everything else was on Netflix, so it kind of made sense to me, at least. Oh yeah, fair enough. There's so much other stuff on there, so yeah.
Yeah, I mean, over here, it used to be the case up until a couple of years ago. Everything was on Netflix. Discovery premiered on Netflix. And then it was only when Paramount Plus was getting close to launch, they kind of pulled the rug out from our feet and pulled Discovery then went to, it's going to be Paramount Plus only. So we had to wait 6 months before Paramount Plus came out in the UK. And then pretty much overnight, everything disappeared from everywhere else, with the exception of season 1 and 2 of Picard. Season 1 and 2 of Picard are still available, I believe, on Prime, but I could be wrong. But everything now is on Paramount Plus. And it's quite funny, actually. I have a tote bag over there that has Paramount Plus written on it, and it says the home of Star Trek. And it's like, not quite. The home of all of Star Trek.
It was. They did put out a very well edited trailer, which was promoting it as being the home of Star Trek, which obviously excluded every single clip of Prodigy or whatever. So yes, as you said, almost, but not quite all.
Yeah, but I'm so glad it's got a home. I mean, and I also think as well is Prodigy, and Lower Decks and Prodigy are a great entry point into Star Trek, because they can be consumed without having to know anything else. I mean, you got people like us. We know these episodes inside out and back to front. So we get excited when we see the name Beverly Crusher and Nick Locarno and everyone else. But my other half, for example, who absolutely, up until recently, detested Star Trek, wouldn't watch Star Trek, hated it, happened to have watched me watching Lower Decks and then went, oh, what's this? And then all of a sudden I hear from the living room his Lower Decks theme tune running, and he's binge watching the first season, which I'm really happy about. But to now, and we can watch these episodes together, and I get all the little details and all the little references, and he doesn't care at the end of the day, and but he enjoys them as they are, and I think they're a great entry point to then, for people that have never watched it, whether you're an adult or a child, because I think Prodigy is great as an adult, and I think a lot of people do as well. So I think it's really good that there are these entry points that now open up this incredible universe to many other fans, and I think that's only ever going to increase. It is a shame that it won't be on Paramount Plus, to keep it all under one roof, but I'm happy that it's been saved and it will be available, and that's the main thing.
Indeed.
Do you think it'll lead to a third season though?
I don't know. And it'll be a shame if it doesn't, because from what I've heard of season two is going to be incredible.
I think it will probably depend a great deal on whether how well it does for Netflix. If season 2 does starts doing, because I think they're putting on season 1 very soon. I think they're putting season 1 on to see how that goes on Netflix, and then obviously when they air season 2, I think they're just going to keep an eye on it and see what sort of numbers it does, and then probably maybe they'll put an order in for a reduced season, because I was always been very surprised based on all the other Star Trek shows that Prodigy is given a 20 episode season, which is almost unheard of in today's day and age to have such an order of episodes so many. So yeah, I mean, I think wait and see what the numbers do for Netflix if people watch it and get into it, and it gains a bigger audience through Netflix if more people have. I know here certainly a lot more people have Netflix. I don't know anybody that's got many people that have got Paramount Plus, but everybody's got Netflix. So whether it will get more of a following because of that. And then they'll just, I would be very surprised if it got another 20 episode third season. It might be a case of, okay, I'll give you a third season, but you've got 8 episodes to wrap up the whole show or something to that effect.
I think that boils down to fans. I mean, there was so much noise around saving Prodigy that that noise has got to filter down to people actually watching it. Because if people don't watch it, then the numbers will be bad and we will never see it again. And there were so many. I mean, heck, people hired planes and had messages hanging out the back of them to say,
yes, that's true. Yes.
We need to make sure that they are watching it on the platforms that matter so that these shows can continue on. And I think that's the biggest thing. So much noise was made that noise has got to filter down into viewings.
Absolutely. So yeah, probably just to talk about one final, talking point or whatever before we go. Well, a couple of weeks back or whatever, I posted on my channel a bit of a project that I've been working on for a little while, which was in the form of my edit of Star Trek the motion picture, which I called the condensed cut, because I don't know whether a lot of you guys would know this or not. I'm sure a lot of people will probably know that the original script for Star Trek the motion picture was as a episode of Star Trek written for Star Trek Phase 2. So it was written a script called In Thy Image. It was meant to be part of this Star Trek Phase 2 TV series that did end up going ahead. And then when they decided to do a Star Trek feature film instead, they took this script from the Star Trek Phase 2 series and turned it into a feature film. But obviously to turn a script that would be, the equivalent of a 50 or 55 minute episode or whatever into a movie, that story has to be stretched out to fill a feature film running time. So I've always thought Star Trek the motion picture was a really good story. I think the whole thing about the V'Ger threat with Earth, and that obviously everyone thinks V'Ger is this alien captain, as Kirk's called it in the movie and everything, but obviously then turns out to be Voyager, probe launched by NASA. And I thought this story is great. I've always loved that story of the motion picture, but I've always found it a tough watch in terms of the pacing of the film and just feeling, oh geez, yes, it's very pretty, and we can obviously have these long shots of the Enterprise very slowly driving into through the Voyager cloud and everything. And I've always thought, what would it be like if you just tightened all that stuff up and just made it a bit pacier, made it a bit punchier, and chop it down to basically what the story was originally conceived as, which is an episode of Star Trek. And that's what I did. So, David, I know you. It's been on my site for a little while. Did you get a chance to have a look at it? Well, because it's been getting some mostly positive. I think about 75% of the people who've watched it have been really glowing positive reviews. And there've obviously been some people who've gone, you bastard, you've desecrated art and so forth. But yeah, but
the Antichrist.
Yes. But what did you think, David?
Yeah, look, I mean, even just to add a little bit of the background to that too, it's also, I guess, ties into the, where Nomad has gone before, or the Changeling episode of Star Trek from the original series. So tying into that one. Look, I think we have probably 3 versions now. We've got your version, which is good. We've got the original version, which is very long and very involved. And we've also got, I guess, the director's cut, which is kind of somewhere in between there, which is, I think that was introduced around about 2002 or something, or 2001 from memory. I think the Reader's Digest version, I will call your version. If you're wanting to get a nice, concise episode that covers the main content, I think it hits the mark, and I think it does extremely well for the hour that it covers that content, because there's a lot of content in there. It's a huge movie. I mean, we haven't seen the characters for like, I don't know, what was it, 12 years or something? I mean, I'm not talking about the animated series, but since the original series finished to when they come back, so much has changed. So there's a bit of a journey as they come on board. You've got a lot of, the new Enterprise. You've got the whole Vija thing, which is quite, was it 2 astronomical units of cloud and a massive 90-kilometer ship or something, which occupies obviously a bit of airtime and needs a bit of portrayal, I guess. But I think the condensed version is really good for people that want to get the content distilled quite concisely. And I think you've done a really good job, Nick, in, I guess, polishing that up, having it finesse quite quickly. It's quite a good way of portraying it. The thing I would say though is the Klingons. You got rid of the Klingons. Why?
Yes, but okay, I'll tell you why I got rid of the Klingons, right? And I thought about this. I thought about this long and hard. The reason the Klingons are in the start of this movie is to establish the threat of Vija, how powerful Vija is, and what a big threat it is, because it destroys the Klingon fleet of ships or whatever. But it also does the same thing to the Epsilon 9 station. It takes that out as well. So when you think about it, what the film needs is it needs a scene to establish Vija is a threat. It's got massive firepower that can wipe out, fleets of ships or space stations or whatever, and it's heading for Earth. That's basically what you need to be established. Now, I thought it needs one of these moments in the film to establish that threat. And it's got the Klingons being destroyed, and it's got Epsilon 9 station being destroyed. If you take out Epsilon 9 and leave the Klingons, then Vija becomes, Vija might be a good guy because it's taking out the threat of the Federation that is the evil Klingon Empire. So maybe they're good guys behind the Vija cloud. But if you take out the Epsilon 9 station, which is a Starfleet Federation base, you immediately know that the Vija cloud is a threat to Earth and a threat to Starfleet. That was the reason I left in them being destroyed. But in seeing them destroyed, then I figured, well, you don't need, as cool as it is seeing the Klingons. Ultimately, if you see the Epsilon 9 station being destroyed, it wipes them out. They send the message back to the Earth saying it's headed for Earth and we're in deep shit. That's all you need from a storytelling perspective to establish the threat that is Vija.
But look, I think
that's just what I thought.
You're going to get people that are going to say, I want to see every minute of this. I want to see the extra, the footage that hit at the floor. I want to see every moment of the Voyager, exploration of the craft and the cloud. It was really interesting when I was watching the director's cut, because I literally was looking at the Eagle Moss model of the Vija, and I could actually sort of trace out where the Enterprise was going. Because when I hadn't looked at that model, it was like just confusing effect shots basically, but this actually gave it some perspective. But I think you're going to get people that will find they like the original, but you're going to get a lot of people that will go, hey, this is for me. It's to the point. I'm not yawning. I'm not falling asleep through it. I'm not getting my eyes spazzed out by, very, very politically incorrect to say that, but by lots of, like I'm looking at the 2001 ending sequence where you need to probably be on something to really get into it. Yeah, that's a very famous the time warp sequence where you tripped on some acid. Maybe people like to trip on acid when they're watching the original version. I don't know, whatever floats your boat. But I think you're going to get people that will be at ends of the spectrum. But I think for what you did within 60 minutes, I think it was a top effort. I think a lot of the comments conveyed that. You also able to keep, I guess, the the Decker and the Leah story in quite.
That's the
well.
heart of it. The
Yes.
Decker and Ilea story is the heart of that film.
Sorry, Ilea. Yep.
Yeah, Ilea.
And the other part, and the other part was Spock's communion with V'Ger as well. That was also maintained very well through the narrative that was conveyed in that 60 minutes. So I think, well done.
Yeah, I mean, all that stuff really works well in terms of the narrative of the story. I obviously, you probably noticed I lost the bit at the start with Spock on Vulcan, doing all that ceremonial stuff with the Vulcans. That was probably superfluous. Yeah, and the and obviously all that stuff with the wormhole and people getting killed in transporter accidents. Basically, all of the stuff at the beginning where the Enterprise, the engines aren't working, we've got the transporter breaking down, people are getting, fried in the transporter and everything. All that stuff just delays them leaving space dock or whatever, and getting out there and investigating what's going on. It's just padding to kind of, what can we do to slow us down so it takes us longer to get there. And then obviously the wormhole thing is caused by the engine imbalance. If you're actually, you don't kind of need all that stuff with the Enterprise's engines playing up and transporters, marking with people and them going into wormholes and everything. That doesn't actually get us to the story of investigating V'Ger any quicker. But that's just me.
Is there plans to do any other ones?
No. It's one of those things that I've always kind of been in the back of my mind to kind of, I've just been interested to see if it still works. In watching Strange New Worlds episodes and everything, it kind of it sort of sparked more of a thought process in that regard. Again, I thought, I wonder, if you approached it from the same point of view. And obviously all the visual effects look great and everything, and the story in its core is an interesting story. I've always just thought it takes a long time to play out and to kind of get where it needs to go. And knowing that it was originally conceived as an episode, I thought, why not try to restore it to that kind of original concept, and see if it works or not. Yeah.
I think there'll be a lot of younger viewers out there too who, they journey back to, when they're getting onboarded through some of the newer shows, some of the new track, and they go back and they'll see things like this and they'll go, this is a great way of watching it, because I think a modern audience would struggle with 3 hours. Definitely.
Yeah. Yes. All right. So yeah, apart from that, that was sort of we've sort of we always tend to go over we always plan 90 minutes on these streams, but we always creep over the line a little bit. Mike, do you want to tell us a little bit about the CloneStar podcast and what you guys do on that?
Yeah. So CloneStar Pod was originally started by the wonderful Sean Ferrick and Joseph Hurley over in Ireland. It started off as the two of them just sort of recapping their 5 favorite episodes from each show, or each season, I should say. And then it just kind of ballooned from there. They wanted us to diversify a little bit, so it kind of branched into the War Room, which is the interview series that we have. And predominantly we interview the people behind the camera, not necessarily the people in front of the camera. As we all know the end result, and we all know the people who play our favorite characters or whatever, but we don't necessarily know the writers, the directors, the graphic designers, the motion designers, etc. So we kind of pride ourselves a little bit in taking a slightly different approach, and we go after those kinds of people. So we've had people like Doug Drexler, Dave Blass, on other people that you don't necessarily maybe know of. Well, obviously everyone knows who Doug Drexler and Dave Blass are now, but we've just recently had Meg Lloyd on, who is she's a storyboard artist and director for Lower Deck season 4. So she actually directed episode 2, which is my favorite episode. So there's some real funny anecdotes there about how Moopsy came into existence, which is hilarious. So if you haven't seen that, it's definitely worth a watch. Plus, she's just incredibly lovely and completely bonkers like the rest of us. And that's kind of it. And then we kind of branched out a little bit more, and we have my show, which is 10 Forward, which I run through each episode every week. And give it a little recap and summary. Normally in under 15-minute kind of bite, so it's the kind of thing that you could, quickly listen on while you're doing some housework or something and still get a gist of what's going on in the season. So, yeah, it's just gradually branching out from there. We've got a new show launching later this year / early next year, which I can't say too much about, but if you love Star Trek, you're going to love it.
Nice.
Watch this space.
Yes.
Watch this space. Yeah. Well, thanks everybody for tuning in today for this live stream. Much appreciated. David, thank you as always for joining me in today's stream.
Thank you. Thanks for having me.
No worries. Always a pleasure. And Mike, thank you so much for filling in for me very much at the last minute.
No worries. Thank you for having me.
No, it's been great having you on. I really appreciate it.
No worries at all. Thanks.
So thanks everybody. As always, I'll be back soon cranking out videos as I tend to do. There'll be, even though Lower Decks is finished, I'm sure there'll be some Star Trek news and stuff to have a chat about in coming weeks. So be sure to keep an eye out for that. And no doubt we'll be back again in 3 or 4 weeks for another live show. Thanks everybody for watching, and we'll see you then. Cheers.